Good afternoon. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today for the BuildX Alberta Virtual Education mini-series. My name is James Wyatt, the Programming Manager for the BuildX series from Informa Connect. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors for supporting this week's event, Vectorworks, the series title sponsor, session sponsors Intuitive, Gasonic, and Vectorworks, and our commercial sponsors, Tech Windows and Doors and PM Times. Without them, this mini-series would not be possible, and I invite you to check out their websites and social media accounts. Now, you may submit questions in the question box throughout the presentation, and these will be viewable by the speakers. Please use the same box for technical or platform-related questions, and we will be glad to assist you. Additionally, there will be a Q&A breakout session on Zoom directly after this session at 1 p.m. Mountain Time for 15 minutes. You may join this session to ask questions or continue the conversation through chat, audio only, or video. It's completely up to you, and we do encourage you to join. Lastly, I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's session, Robin Baxter. Robin is Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Workplace Advisory for Colliers Strategy and Consulting Group. Robin leads Colliers' Canadian team of workplace professionals and is a member of the Global Workplace Advisory Leadership Group. With more than 25 years of experience developing effective workplace, transformation, and user experience strategies, she investigates the intersection of business, work process, people, and environments to help business leaders make workplace decisions that propel their organizations forward. As an experienced coach, Robin facilitates courageous conversations, drives continuous innovation, and builds the necessary knowledge and skills within her client's organization so that they can move forward with confidence. Robin has led workplace strategy and hybrid work initiatives with organizations across multiple sectors, locally and abroad, and brings this depth of research, experience, and understanding to help senior leaders make evidence-based decisions and achieve measurable results. Now, without further ado, over to Robin.
Thank you, James. It's my pleasure to be here today, and good afternoon to everybody who's joined us. I would please feel free to ask questions, as was said earlier, in the chat as we go, or save them for the Q&A toward the end of this hour, or for the breakout session that follows. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists today. And I will start with Kim Green, who is Principal of Interior Design, KZN Architecture and Interior Design and Planning Limited. Kim oversees the Workplace Interior Design Studio in Calgary, providing leadership to team members and projects. With more than 30 years of experience in the workplace and commercial interior design business, Kim understands the impact of the built environment on corporate brand and culture and employee wellness and productivity in support of business goals. Kim works closely with her clients to consider corporate culture and organizational needs and achieving a balance that fosters creativity and productivity in both workplace and commercial developments. Kim's reputation is supported by her award-winning portfolio, where she has created elegant yet practical interiors that are built on her belief that you can achieve business success by driving innovation and igniting the human experience. Welcome, Kim. Next is Roman Girard, who is the Manager of Corporate Real Estate at Stantec. Roman is an accomplished leader in real estate with over 15 years experience in successfully leading lease negotiations, real estate strategy, and development for industrial and office projects across Canada, the US, Mexico, and China. Roman is skilled in developing long-term real estate strategies with a pragmatic approach in providing bottom-line savings and value to the business. In his current role at Stantec, Roman is responsible for their Canadian portfolio totaling over 2 million square feet. Welcome, Roman. And finally, Justin Marechuk, Senior Vice President and Partner of Occupier Services Group at Colliers International. Justin leads a dedicated team representing the interests of tenants and occupiers, both locally and abroad. His group has completed some of Calgary's largest and most complex projects, including leases, acquisitions, and design builds for clients like Hexagon AB, Computer Modeling Group, Benevity, University of Calgary, and Alberta Health Services. Since joining Colliers in nearly 15 years ago, Justin has consistently recognized as a top performer, winning Colliers Award of Excellence every year since 2014, and was invited to become partner in the Calgary office in 2017. Justin is an active member of the Colliers Global Tenant Advisory Council, is a founding member of the Colliers Technology Advisory Services Group, and sits on the board of the Remington Charity Golf Classic in support of the Prostate Cancer Center. Justin's team has also received several NAIOP Real Estate Excellence Awards, including Development of the Year in 2019 and Office Lease of the Year in 2018. I welcome you all and look forward to a great discussion today. Before we get to that, I'm going to kick us off with just a couple of slides with some data that may help set the stage for our discussion. If we can, so I'll transition to that and then we'll get the panel started. So the first thing I wanted to share is just some insights into where everybody is. As we know, the world, and even by province and by city, has been through a very diverse set of experiences. And so this now already is a month old, and in today's world, that's ancient. But as of a month ago, you can see the diversity of how many people were back in the office, with extremes across Canada, with Calgary at 50% of people back and Montreal at 0%. So we know the ups and downs of COVID have been trying and have had impacts on how we occupy our spaces over the past 15 to 18 months. The next piece of information here is coming from some tenant research that Colliers has been doing over the past few months as well. And we can see the changing perceptions of future need of office space and how that started to really change in 2021 as we became more optimistic about what the future might be. So you can see that late in 2020 or mid to late 2020, there was an overall feeling that we would be reducing our real estate requirements, that we would be able to get by with less space. And as we get closer to life as normal, we're finding that organizations are feeling like they're going to keep the same amount of space as the predominant one. Some are thinking about less space, and still many are not sure. Hybrid work has become a much more highly accelerated topic, with many clients trying to figure out what it means for them, if it means anything for them, and if it does, how to roll it out, how to design a program or model it for the workforce. So that's something that's definitely impacting long-term real estate decisions. Adaption and adoption. So this is coming from a couple of surveys we did over the course of 2020, one near the beginning of the year and one near the end, where we were tracking how employee perceptions were changing in terms of many things we looked at. But here we're sharing some examples of productivity, where we found people were a bit surprised by how productive they felt almost immediately after we all went home, and come towards fall last year, that only rose. So people were really getting into the swing of things in terms of the remote work model. Some concerns were coming out in terms of the pressure to be online all the time, now that our office was in our dining room, our bedroom, or in other places within our home where we might not have been used to it. And that 50% of people actually reported working more hours. And there was a correlation to those working more hours with those who were feeling more productive. So good news on one hand, but perhaps some questioning of the sustainability of that over time. The other point here is the desire to continue to work from home. And you can see that over time, again, the desire we've kind of adopted this way of working more and more into our mindset. And so not that many people want to work from home exclusively, but most do want some degree of flexibility in their future. And that is supported in this survey that was done by the Prudential Group, where they were looking at the possibility of turnover and how that might change post-COVID. And just a couple of stats picked out of their results, in that 42% of people currently working in a remote model are looking to continue that to some degree, and would be willing to look for a different job if their current employer didn't offer that in the long term. 26% of people are actually planning to look for new work once things settle down post-COVID. So those are both things that organizations, businesses, are paying a lot of attention to in their future plans. No need to spend a lot of time on here. We all know that climate has and continues to be an issue, along with wellness, but the perception of wellness and the attention that people are going to be paying to their buildings and the wellness aspects of their buildings is only going to accelerate. And I think the Delos celebrity endorsed, program that has been coming out is an indication or a barometer of how everybody wants to know what the situation is and be able to understand how their buildings are operating in light of their health. And then finally, no surprise to anyone, these are stats that I'm sure everybody on this call are very familiar with. And the first being office density. So as organizations think of hybrid work, another layer on top of that is how many people can you fit in, or how many desks can you fit in? And we know that over the last number of decades, there's been pressure to fit more and more people into the space. And COVID and the post-pandemic workplace may take a bit of a challenge to some of the extremes that had gone to, but that continues to be something that real estate executives, and we'll hear from Roman later to validate this, but it's something that's changing the nature of our workplaces and potentially having an impact future forward on office vacancies. So the chart on the right there is one we're probably all familiar with and hate to see, with Calgary and Edmonton being the top two lines. And with that, we will start the panel. So the first question, I'm going to start with Roman. And just as a real estate executive, can you please start us off with some insight into how, as a corporate real estate executive, your approach to determining real estate needs has evolved over the past decade, and more specifically the past year? What's changing as your organization considers the future of real estate?
Thank you for the question, Robin. First, I'm thankful for being part of the discussion with some great professionals, Justin, Kim, and yourself. I've been quite fortunate throughout my career to have worked for various multinational companies along the way and ending up at Stantec now. Over the years, the range of determining the real estate footprint has changed from, at least from my experience, has changed from, well, we have 10,000 square feet. Let's see how many people we can cram into here, right? No, really no discussion over how people work, what the focus space is, what collaboration space is, and so forth. To now, most recently, we've been a lot more focused on how our employees' departments work. Do we need more focus space? Do we need more collaboration space? And what is the preferences of our employees? Do they want to work from home? Do they want to work from the office? Do they want to be remote, part-time? So what we take those into consideration as we kind of move forward with our decision making as well, right? And then you get to some of the other aspects of it, such as amenity spaces, what are important to us, to our employees, access to the location that we're looking at. So that kind of changes the dynamics. So are we looking at more downtown locations? Are we looking at more suburban locations? So that becomes an important aspect. And of course, sustainability has become a big question as well. It's quite important for us in how we kind of go through our requirements on that side of things. So, this information provided to us kind of details the requirements to make the correct estimation for our real estate portfolio, or how much space are we going to take as we're negotiating our leases or we're looking at moving and so forth. What we have realized is that it's not one solution that will fit all of our offices. It's a case-by-case kind of basis. So each office will work different, right? We have rural offices like in Whitehorse or somewhere else. And then we have metropolitan offices in Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Edmonton, and so forth. So people work different in different areas of the country. So we have to kind of look at that as well as we move forward in terms of how that translates into our space requirements. So, taking that kind of in mind, I do believe like the Calgary and Edmonton downtown markets will see some activity, some increased activity on the sublease market, and maybe Justin can kind of go with it. And that's my thought, right? So, because I believe there are going to be companies that will downsize, but that will open up room for companies that thought that they might need 10,000 square feet, but now based on some of the workplace strategy and the, understanding that it's working from home is doable and it's not necessary for someone to be in office full time. So that will decrease the requirements and make, downtown locations, which are a little bit more prestigious and more expensive, somewhat more attainable for a smaller company on the sublease market. And that's just kind of my opinion on the overall basis of what we're seeing, or what I'm actually seeing at Stantec and what I was seeing elsewhere. So
it sounds, Roman, like the complexity of your world has increased a lot in terms of how you make decisions.
Yeah, it's not as easy as saying, let's just take 10,000 square feet, right? So yeah, definitely it's a big difference.
Yeah. So Justin, can you comment on Roman's position there and talk about what your clients are talking about?
Yeah, happy to. And thanks again for including me in this, Robin. I think Roman's comment is correct in the sense that we are definitely seeing more and more space come to market. Calgary and Alberta, largely Alberta, I would say Calgary, but we're not 15 months into a pandemic. We're 6 years into a downturn, right? Let's be honest about our situation. So we've been working through a tough market. I guess it depends what side of the fence you sit on. We represent tenants, so that's always kind of fun when things are like this. But in terms of market dynamics, the reality is it's soft. It's just soft across the board, and it's gotten softer as the pandemic's kind of unfolded. Vacancy's gone up right across the board. Calgary and Edmonton are very different markets. Our inventory in Calgary is 44 million feet downtown and sort of 28 in the burbs and the Beltline, whereas the entire inventory of Edmonton's like 31 million feet. So, Edmonton's entire office market fits in our suburban market in Calgary. So they're very, very different, and our drivers are different. Edmonton's more government-based. Calgary historically has been more energy-based. 70% of the tenants downtown historically have been energy. That's changing for sure. But yeah, I think it's getting softer. I think it's likely to get softer. But at the same time, we have clients all the time that say, well, from a timing perspective, what should I do? Should I wait this out and sort of see how bad things get? Are we at bottom? Are we near bottom? My answer is, your business drivers will ultimately dictate what decision you make. But the bottom line is, what's the difference between 30 and 35? What's the difference between 18 and 22 and 18 and 25? Like, there is a whole lot of space available right now. The deals are extremely good. And we're to a point now where the marginal increase in vacancy isn't having a drastic impact on business terms, right? If you got a problem asset, if a landlord has a problem asset that they need to do something new with, or it's going to sit forever, then that's what they got to do. And Kim, hopefully when she gets the opportunity, she can talk about the district, but there's a great example of how some landlords and developers are rethinking assets with good fundamentals to create something new and awesome, and they're doing really well as a result. But that's not everyone. Not every single building is going through that process, I would say. Does that answer your question, hopefully? Yeah,
I think so. And good segue to Kim. So Kim, if you'd like to comment on what are you dealing with your clients and also within the projects that Kasian is working on?
Oh, yes. Well, that's interesting and a really broad set of thoughts and ideas. Locally and nationally with our clients, we're seeing a real mix of ideas, really. And I think it's depending a lot on their corporate culture and also what type of work environment they had before. So companies are starting on different spectrums or different ends of the continuum of a progressive workplace. or not. And it's not judgmental, it's just differences in corporate culture, and the office space needs that will support that. Last spring, it was really us supporting our clients in a very reactionary, safety-focused path back to the office, the 6-foot spacing and all of that. And I'm sort of sensing that some of the organizations who are closed office, especially, and we know we have a lot of those still in Alberta, or organizations that really aren't interested in, or it doesn't support their industry to be a innovative, collaborative sort of environment. They're more solo focused work. Those groups, maybe once they've got the safety stuff figured out, they'll just go back to the way they were. But I have seen a bigger shift over the last 6 or 9 months to a bigger percentage of our clients really looking at that longer term view of both implications and opportunities for new ways of working. They're really embracing the concept of hybrid work. For many of them who've never even considered it before, it was just completely shut down. They're recognizing that they can adjust their space and provide some flexibility for their staff. And really what's coming out of this then is, well, what is the purpose of the office? And over again, people are starting to even come to their own recognizations that it's really about supporting mentorship, collaboration, culture, and innovation. So be the big things.
Right. So I guess back to Roman, is Stantec looking at hybrid work as a model to go forward, or to what degree do you think that might change your real estate requirements?
No, definitely we're looking at a hybrid work model. I guess we started looking at it, I would say, prior to me starting at Stantec, like 2-3 years ago, is when they really started taking a good look at the portfolio, getting an understanding of how people work, why they work a certain way, and so forth. The only thing the pandemic has done, or the COVID-19, is just accelerated our implementation. Really, that's kind of what it has come out of it. Is we knew where we were going to go with it. Is just the timing has now become, instead of going in the next 4 to 5 years, we're trying to squeeze it down maybe into 2 years or 3 years max. So we are looking at downsizing, and those options are all on the table.
When you talk about the complexity, or I'm assuming complexity, but the change in who's at the table, when your real estate decisions used to be simpler than they are today, but they were also made by the real estate person and maybe the CFO. Can you talk about, and is there an expanded group of people who are now involved in these decisions?
Yeah, there's input from there's tons of different stakeholders now, right? The HR takes a good lead on it now, the human aspect of it, the people aspects of it. The local operation has a big say in it. They know how the employees work. They understand what kind of business they're moving forward with, what's in the pipeline, and so forth. So the stakeholders has evolved, and it's going to evolve even further as we move forward with some of our strategies. Definitely. It's become a more complex decision-making matrix than it was before. It's not just the dollars that are pushing the decision.
Yeah, and Justin, I'm wondering, from your perspective and the clients you're dealing with, are you dealing with different people than traditionally you would have been?
Yeah, and I would echo with what Roman said. Historically, our clients are, CEOs, COOs, CFOs. You're definitely seeing much more of the human resources folks involved in a lot of these decisions, because it is, real estate is a supporter of culture, collaboration, of creating an environment for employees to thrive. But we're changing the way we do business. A lot of us, maybe some are ahead of us than others, but I think about Colliers, even ourselves. I mean, we weren't remote before this. We could be, but most people wanted to be in the office. We've got 48 offices and 2,000 people across the country. Most of our people were in the office. This has changed that. It's going to change that moving forward. And it's certainly bringing the business conversation and the human resources conversation. I think about it this way. Real estate's typically most companies' second highest expense, but it's around 5 to 6% of your expense report. People's your highest expense in most companies, well, that's 40 to 50 to 60 to 70% of your expenses in some cases. So if I can save you, $10 a foot on your rent, or whatever the number is, that's great. But if we can help real estate support the 70%, like where's the bigger impact going to be? And this is an opportunity to really do both. But to do both, you have to have the business conversation, which a lot of times involves, as Roman said, a whole bunch of stakeholders that may not necessarily have been on the table historically, right? So it's changed. It's definitely changed the conversation for sure.
I wonder from everybody, but maybe I'll position it to Kim first and then everybody jump in, is that one of the slides I showed is that almost half of people are saying that if they don't have some sort of flexibility moving forward, they're going to look for another job. Is that something you've already been hearing from clients? And is it part of what you're dealing with?
I don't think it's come to that as specifically as that is kind of a worry, but certainly a recognition that their employees have had a taste for working from home, and they're recognizing that they want to do that. So, we're looking at long-term strategies with lots of clients to make those shifts. Big government organizations in Toronto and Vancouver that we're working with are exploring hybrid work environments for the first time. And in those cases, because they are very large facilities, they can have some space savings, but we wouldn't be seeing that so much in a smaller organization. So yeah, definitely. There are a real variety of ideas, though, that organizations are coming up with. There's another professional organization in Alberta that we're working with, and they're considering an interesting notion of everybody at the office the same 4 days and everybody at home the same 1 day a week. So it's providing some work from home, but it's not the flexibility that we typically think of. So, it really varies. And, back to that talk about density, we've got another couple of organizations their leases aren't due for a long time. In fact, one of them just moved in just prior to COVID, so they hardly had a chance to enjoy their new workplace. But we're looking at reworking it to allow for larger workspaces and less density, because they're seeing people will be working from home. They don't want to reduce their space. They just want to give more space for everybody. So it's kind of all over the map. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. The tension of how structured should it be? Because if the purpose of place going forward is to bring people together to collaborate, how do you know that the people you need to collaborate are going to be there if everybody's making their choice every morning when they wake up? And so we're seeing the same thing with clients: is how do you structure it? How do you give flexibility, but still to the benefit of the business and what the business needs, right?
I'll give you an odd example. I heard something yesterday that I found surprising. So a client of ours, a big technology company, historically been in the office. They got offices right across Canada. And they're going through this process. They had remote before this, but it wasn't nearly as widely used as it's going to be. They surveyed their folks. More than half their people want to have some sort of flexibility. That's not surprising. But one of the things that came out was that they found there was a real discrepancy between people's experiences in meetings, the folks that were in the office versus the folks that were remote. And the folks that were remote felt like they weren't part of the conversation and that they couldn't get the balance right. So their plan is to go 100% meetings will only happen over Zoom from now on, Zoom and Teams. So no more in-person meetings. And that blew my mind. I've never heard anyone, if anything, it's, well, you got to come here to meet and you work from home. Now it's, you can work here, but you won't meet in the same place, right? So different companies are trying different things, because there's so much of this that we just don't know what it's going to be yet. And it's hard to make a one-size-fits-all policy for everybody, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I would say to think about this as an iterative approach. If you think just in terms of some of our perceptions last April, then June, then August, like every 3 months or more often, we've changed our idea about what could work and what will work. And I hope that as we go forward, we continue to approach this as iteration and not make too many huge decisions from the middle of a pandemic, right? So there's a lot of new opportunities, but also a lot of learning still to be done. Let's see. Can we transition this to a little bit about the discussion about the downtown cores over the last number of years and how, the vacancy has increased so dramatically? And as you said, Justin, it's not a pandemic problem. It's a longer term problem for us in Alberta. How do you see, or what do you see as the potential what's going to happen in the future related to our vacancy?
Yeah, if I only knew that. I think we need to be careful about being too specific about the downtown. I know it's important. I know Calgary's is important. I know Edmonton's is important. But as I said earlier, I mean, inventory in Edmonton is split almost half-half between the downtown and the suburbs. And in Calgary, it's less than 60-40, right? It's more like 55-45. So, we've gotten extremely focused, economic development and everything else, extremely focused on supporting the downtown core. But I can tell you, it can be to the detriment of other really cool parts of Calgary and really cool parts of Edmonton. So not to say that we shouldn't focus on the downtown. Of course, it's super important. We all want to have a vibrant downtown core. But I think there's got to be more balance to the conversation. At least that's my personal opinion. I think what the city's doing in Calgary to say, hey, we know we need to get behind this. It's not going to happen on its own. Both financially and from a policy perspective is great. That needed to happen. I question how much impact it's going to have only because, I hear from clients what they think it would cost to change a downtown office building to a residential tower. And what the city's providing, it is not going to cut it. It just doesn't cover it. But it doesn't mean that they aren't going to make some sort of an impact. But they got, I respect they have to do something. It's just what's the right balance. Until we get people comfortable living downtown, I'm talking about Calgary because, again, I'm not as familiar with Edmonton, but until we get people comfortable living in the downtown core and have all the amenities and the services and the things that make you want to be downtown, it's not going to fundamentally change. Calgary's always been a city where you drive to work, you're there 7 to 5, whatever it is, and you drive to your house, and you rarely spend much time outside of the Beltline or 17th Ave. You just didn't come downtown for lots of things for dinner, and which is sad because we do have a very cool downtown core in certain parts of it. So it's a long way of saying it's a long game, and I think it's great they're doing something about it, but I would be careful about making it explicit to downtown because we do have challenges in every part of the city, in both cities for sure.
Right. And in terms of repositioning I guess it's repositioning the portfolio. Kim, I don't know if you can talk about the district and what's been happening there. And I know, Justin, you've had some involvement there as well.
Yes, I can certainly talk about it. We love talking about the district. I just rode by it on my bike yesterday, and it's starting to look like a real occupied space. It'll be great as tenants start moving in. So yeah, as Justin mentioned, that's a really interesting redevelopment of an old, rather frumpy, dated complex. And we were working with Spear Street out of San Francisco, who are very visionary. And they really grasped onto our concept of lifescape and really activating the ground plane and creating spaces that are very interactive and embracing city life. And the space has been redeveloped with lots of great amenities on the social side. There's places for restaurants and outdoor spaces. And I think it's worked because it's leasing up really well, as I'm sure Justin can attest to. So it's become, I think, a great model, and it'll be great to see if some other developers might want to take a similar approach, because I think I can think of some other possibilities in the Beltline and around that could maybe have a similar sort of treatment to activate and create a whole new environment. It's not just a big static tower with nothing going on at the base. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. In a weird way, this is an odd thing to say, but they've almost benefited from COVID there to some degree, because what people are realizing is, if I'm going to bring people back to work, then that place has got to be awesome, right? It can't just be the stodgy old C-class tower I was in before. And what they are doing there is truly different in Calgary. It's very much like something you'd see in the US. I've been in lots of office parks all over the world, and I can tell you it's one of the cooler ones I've had the opportunity to understand and be a part of. We don't list it, but we've done 100,000 feet there between 4 or 5 different clients, and we've got more clients looking at it now. I mean, they don't have a lot of vacancy left, so it'll be full here very soon. And you give the Spear Street guys a ton of credit, and Kim's team a ton of credit. There was a vision, and it was a unique vision, and it wasn't just, I'm going to put a gym and a basketball court and a coffee shop. Everything ties together. Everything sort of works to create one sort of cohesive ecosystem. And not just in business hours, also evenings, weekends, bike path, it all works together. I think that's what people got, is you're not just coming to an office park, you're buying into an ecosystem, like a fully functioning environment. And it's working super, super well. So yeah, I give a ton of credit to everyone involved. And the other thing they did right there was they went ahead and built it. A lot of folks in our world will say, we got these drawings, we got a really cool idea. As soon as it gets to leasing, then we're going to go ahead with it. Well, it doesn't work real well in Calgary and Edmonton, I can just tell you, especially not in soft markets, because people just don't believe you. But the Spirit Street guys, they went ahead and they said, no, we're doing this. Whether we have tenants or not, we're doing this. And, we will build it and they will come. And that's exactly what's happened there. So it's been really good.
That's great. So Roman, I'm going to switch to you. And from your perspective, as you're out looking at real estate in the various cities that you're in, how important is this kind of, as Justin said, coming back to C-class building, not saying you are in those right now, but how important is location?
It is. Location is quite important. So it's not about, again, just to the whole point, it's not about just going back to the office anymore, right? It's about getting people excited to come back to the office as part of the whole strategy as well, right? If we have the opportunity to look at various different locations, something like that district is something that would be important to us, because it's not just, and Stantec on the engineering part, probably, we preach the same thing, right? The ecosystem, building certain things and making sure that, it's conducive to all the employees and it's part of how you want to work, right? And this is just a formula that's worked in other metropolitan cities outside, right? Like Toronto, Vancouver, just to name a few. This works. We know it works. It's just who's willing to spend the money to make it work somewhere like Calgary or Edmonton or elsewhere, right? So as Stantec, definitely, it's a very important aspect of what we're looking for, and what helps is, we're not traditionally now going and looking for example, if we were in 20,000 square feet of space, we're not looking for 20,000 anymore, right? We're looking for a smaller space, which works on a hybrid basis in terms of the workplace strategy. So these things, as you decrease your space, as you densify, you look at that, traditionally when something like this was not an option due to cost basis and so forth, now it does become an option. And that was just my point from the beginning. As companies start looking at these, what was not an option in the past start becoming options. And that's, to me, a good story moving forward for, developers such as that.
Yeah. Can you talk also about the aspect of wellness in the workplace and how employee expectations or demands or how the business is thinking about your own environments or the environments your organization is delivering to other clients?
We haven't delivered any real new space yet. So, yes. But it is always on top of mind, right? So we did just renew in Calgary, one of our offices, which was part of a consolidation. And in that, we're taking a lot of the TI money that was given to us to create more amenities for our employees there, to create more spaces that are outside of kind of the office, right? Like more patio space, more spaces for impromptu meetings and so forth. So if there is that opportunity, definitely we'd look at it quite intensely. Absolutely.
And Kim, how about you? What are you seeing? And even in terms of certification as well and like that side of things?
Yeah, wellness is certainly becoming more and more important in the workplace. Not seeing a whole lot of uptake on Well AP. We have Well AP professionals across our firm, but we haven't done too much on that yet. But I think really with working remotely for so long, I think collectively we have a greater sense of empathy and inclusion after witnessing our peers and clients and families go through challenges, seeing their homes and their dogs and their babies. And I think that's really led to an overall better awareness of empathy, inclusion, and wellness. And that ties into both physical and emotional, and recognizing that needs to be supported in the workplace. So it's some organizations have been doing that, amazingly well for a long time, but it's really going to be the time to put a focus on that. That can be translated into space considerations, things like thinking about small multi-purpose rooms that could be mother's rooms, meditation spaces, prayer rooms, providing some game spaces for some social and even physical activity, whether it's board games at lunch or a round of foosball or table tennis. It's just providing those mental breaks and social connections, and maybe even physical activity as well. And then fitness centers. Well, we've been talking about fitness centers forever, but whether those are in-house or landlords, maybe that's an opportunity to really play that up as an amenity that can draw people to the office so that they can get their physical wellness taken care of and also come into the office for the mental side, for that connection and well-being. So yeah, I think those are some big things that we'll be following. There's also, of course, all the policy and programs that companies can consider, such as WELL or softer ones, and even grassroots employee-led initiatives. Actually, at Kasian, starting today, we are starting our, what are we calling it? It's our Fitness and Wellness Challenge, and it's called Kasian Around the World in 30 Days. So collectively, we're tracking all our activity to try to get to 40,000 kilometers firm-wide, by doing anything from, weightlifting training to mountain biking to ride around the park with your family, or even gardening and meditation for those who aren't wanting to do as, the true physical stuff. So that'll be really fun. And hopefully by next year, it won't be all of us doing this by ourselves at home, but it'll be teams working together physically at the office and nearby spaces to do some really fun physical activities together and really build that culture. So it's really about culture and experience, and that can, wellness is a big part of that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to take that. And so there's been an increased emphasis on tech in Calgary from economic development and broadening our diversifying. We have a question from the audience about that, related to that. So with tech companies coming to Calgary, and I'm going to send this one to Justin, aside from offering amenities and flexible deal, what can landlords in Calgary do to better attract those types of users? And what moves the needle for tech?
That's a tough question. I have a lot of thoughts on it because I've heard from a lot of clients in this space over the last few years about what everyone's tried to do. Landlords themselves, it's you can lobby. I mean, I can tell you the fundamental issue has been big tech companies, and not just big tech, but every big company chases two things: profitability and talent. Well, profitability comes from government incentives in a lot of cases. So you look at how Denver, Pittsburgh, a lot of these cities in the U.S. especially kind of got started in their tech revolution, whatever you want to call it. It's because the government came out and really participated in the process. And now I think we're seeing more of that. Certainly over the last 6 to 8 months, we've seen a lot more government incentives and things that are going to drive people looking harder at Calgary. That's a big part of it. Second biggest challenge we have is just the talent pool in Calgary. We do a tremendous amount of technology work relative to probably our competitors in Calgary. And I can tell you uniformly, we hear time and time again, my biggest problem is finding people. My biggest problem is getting the right people. Now, there are technology companies who have benefited from the fact that the energy industry has had some challenges, because now you can get someone who was getting $120,000 in an expense account and a car allowance for maybe 60 or 70 grand. And that's great, but you still don't have the Java developer that you need to actually write the code for the software that you're creating, right? So until we have our post-secondaries churning people out at the rate we need them to, or until we have enough people wanting to come to Calgary from Toronto or Vancouver or LA or wherever, until we get that, it's going to be tough to really get the Amazons and the Microsofts and the Facebooks, like to get the big guys to say, I'm going to take 500,000 feet in Calgary. Until we have 5,000 extra developers, it's just not going to happen. So it's a long game. And the other thing I would say too is, I've heard this from a lot of clients in this space. They say, the media and both the government behind the media, who knows, but they've said, we don't get the support from the government that we would like optically. It's always, we're going to go get these guys and bring them to Calgary. It's never, we have this awesome firm in Calgary and are doing amazing things, and let's make sure everyone knows what they're doing. Like, a big client of ours is a company called Novotel, right? They're 190,000 square feet up in the district in the north, not the district in the Beltline. done 2 design builds for these guys. Couldn't be a cooler story. They're developing all the autonomous technology for driverless cars, the military. It's just amazing what they're doing. And I bet you more than half the people in our city don't even know who they are that they're here. They don't get any media attention, right? And there's lots of those stories. And I can tell you, this is a real long answer, sorry, but I can tell you, if you had the CEO of Novotel in front of people in Silicon Valley saying, come into Calgary, that's a heck of a lot more powerful than any government official going down there doing the same thing. And so until we have everyone pull in the same direction, it's a long game. It's going to take a long, long time for that to really make a difference.
Yeah, no silver bullets, Justin. Come on, I was kind of hoping you'd have that one.
I'd have been retired by now if I had that, I think.
Another question from the audience, and audience, please feel free to add more. But the next one is maybe related to the type of tech firm you just talked about, but do you see more need for warehousing in Calgary and Edmonton?
I don't mean to take questions back to back, but I can give you a good answer here. So I'll give you a very real example of why the answer is yes. Our Vancouver industrial team right now has an industrial site tied up for $5 million an acre. Like the numbers in Vancouver are absolutely staggering. That same piece of dirt in Calgary might be $750,000 an acre, and that might even be high. I don't know. So, I'm not an industrial expert. We have folks in our office who are much more in tune with that world than I am. But I can tell you, the industrial market today is 6% vacant approximately. And, a lot of developers are starting to go on spec on new big box distribution centers because there aren't a lot of options over 100,000 feet anymore. So to answer the question, if I had dirt in this city and a good site, I'd be building industrial tomorrow. That's where I'd be spending my money for sure.
All right. I'm going to go back to Roman just for some final thoughts here on what's on your mind for the immediate future, say priorities for the next 6 to 9 months as we emerge from lockdowns across the country.
So for us is wrapping our head around what our future is really going to look like, right? Personally, I'm looking at all the expiries that are coming out to 2023, engaging the different teams that are involved, seeing what we're going to do as we move forward as a team, right? And seeing, what has changed with regards to the way we work, right? So again, going back to traditional companies that never thought remote work or working from home will work are changing their idea behind it because the companies are still staying profitable. Some are even making more money now. So, as we move forward in the next year or two, I would say, I have a lot of work ahead of me to make sure that we're making the right real estate decisions for that time and the future as well, right? We just can't make a big move without really understanding the consequences of that as well, right? So that's how we're
something
moving forward.
We haven't really touched on, but I think maybe is one of the dependencies there is technology and how it seems like the world was able to switch pretty seamlessly. But I would imagine your groups are pretty high, complex programs, and that. Working in the office was one problem. Moving everybody home was a different problem. Are there additional layers of challenge in having people in both places?
Right for now, I haven't heard anything with regards to, the upload speeds and the time it takes to upload, a major drawing onto a server and so forth. We haven't really have had a lot of feedback on that yet, but I'm sure that's to come. As we, kind of make the changes in our direction and so forth. That is on top of mind because we are heavily engineering focused. So that's our business. So, that will come up, I'm pretty sure. For what I do, it's, pretty simple. And I'm going to be one of those, fully remote, work from home, going to the office maybe once or twice a month. Employees, right? Because I work in all different time zones, and really, I don't need an office. This looks good. So yeah, that's our focus for now, is just trying to understand how we're going to move forward in the coming years. There's a lot of work that we need to do.
Thank you. Kim, what would you recommend that organizations consider or prioritize from the workplace perspective that they may not have thought about previously?
Well, the big one that a lot of people were not even considering 16 months ago was hybrid work environment. So we know that the majority of organizations are dabbling and exploring and trying to figure out what the right solution is for them. So that's one. That empathy and inclusivity, I think, is another big focus that is going to be coming out of this time. Environmental sustainability, another huge one. And then something that you touched on, Robin, it's really about flexibility and resiliency. I think now more than ever, spaces have to be so flexible to adapt. Is there going to be another pandemic or crisis that impacts how we work? And organizations that are testing out a hybrid work environment for the first time are going to go through some challenges and some stumbles to figure out the right mix. And over time, it's going to continue to evolve. So a work environment that is extremely flexible and resilient will enable that business to also be resilient. So I think that's a really big thing to be keeping in mind as we go forward into the future.
Right. We have another question from the audience here. It's related to the diversity and inclusion thing to a degree. So I'll just read the statement and the question. The Immigrant Sector Council in Calgary would suggest the qualified workers are here, that you talked about, Justin, earlier. However, companies are not hiring them. I think the HR aspect of the conversation is more nuanced to our current corporate culture as a city and as a province. Is this anything any of the three of you, and I'll let you decide, have spoken with clients about or are experiencing yourselves?
Well, I'll take on that one a little bit if I can. We haven't specifically had requests or comments or, that raised as something to consider with us anyway. I'm sure organizations are thinking about it internally. But inclusivity and diversity is a really big factor with Kasian. So we're really, being mindful of that and exploring different ways to be more inclusive and ensure that we've got a broad culture that is representative of all different kinds of people. So I know that's a little bit pat, but it's something that's become a lot more prevalent in the news and in our worlds now, and it's important to figure out the right way to be sensitive about how that can go forward.
Mm-hmm. And I would wonder that it's not wonder, but suggest that it's similar to Justin not having the silver bullet, and that this is a long game and it takes a while to change a culture in an organization, never mind in a city and in a province. And so we're hopefully on a path, but probably a long way to go there. Justin, I'll give you the final big question. What advice would you give to organizations who are in the process of evaluating or renewing a space based on current market conditions?
I mentioned something along these lines earlier, but if you're in a position to make a longer term decision, it's not a bad time to consider that. We are in a very, very soft market. Do I think it's going to get better tomorrow? No, but at some point things will turn around in Calgary. They always do. We work in these cycles. This one's been a very long cycle, but if you mapped it since the 80s, maybe even the 70s, you can see these peaks and valleys, certainly in Calgary especially. So I do think at some point things will come back. Even if we get to balance looks a lot different than 30% or 20%. So if you're in a position to make a long-term decision, it's a really good time to do that. But you also don't have to, because I don't think things are going to change dramatically over the next 12 to 18 to even 24 months. It's just, what does your business need? What can your business support? Can you build a lease or a purchase or whatever? Can you build the flexibility that your company needs into the structure of the deal to make sure that, hey, yeah, I can do a 10-year lease, but I'll give an example. So you have a company who's got call it 40,000 feet in a building on 4 floors. Let's just call it 10,000 square feet per floor. Well, maybe you've got core block, which is 2 floors, and those floors are 10,000 square feet each. Then maybe you've got a third floor that's a 5-year deal with a 5-year option of predetermined rates. And maybe that 4th floor is an ongoing 1-year roll that every single year you have the opportunity to pick it up or give it back. I mean, there's ways to build flexibility into deals that you're not giving away leverage that you would otherwise have because of the softness of the market, but you're also not necessarily taking 40,000 feet for 10 years, right? So, we've got, one last thing, Roman. We've got clients in lots of other markets that are very different dynamics than Calgary. And a lot of those folks are just saying, it's 1 year, it's 6 months, that's all I'm doing. I'm not doing anything longer than that. And that might make sense there, but I can tell you in Alberta, it's not a bad time to be thinking longer term if you can.
No, I just definitely, as a real estate manager, definitely 100%, you hit it. Like, there's so much flexibility in the market today that if I'm concerned about 10 years out that the rates are going to be different than what I'm getting today, trust me, you're not going to be wrong making a long-term deal. And there's so much flexibility in the market today that you can be very, very, very easily, you can just make adjustments to your lease and to the way you want to make your terms and so forth. So there's so much flexibility there that you just can't go wrong, is my point. And Justin's dead on. Like, just can't go wrong in this market.
Awesome. Well, I see we're coming to the top of the hour. So I want to thank everybody on the panel here for joining us and taking this time, and remind the audience that we're going to go into a Zoom meeting next, and I'm going to turn it back over to James, who will wrap us up. But thank you, everybody, for coming.
Robin, Kim, Roman, Justin, thank you very much for sharing your expertise, your insights, your thoughts. It was a really fascinating conversation and so directly applicable to our time right now. I'd also like to thank thank Vectorworks, who are our series title sponsor. If anyone missed part of this presentation or would like to watch it again, or would like to share it with a colleague perhaps, the recording will be available on demand after the event. You will receive a thank you email with a link for your registration. You can share this email with colleagues who can then register themselves to watch the session at their convenience on demand. And as Robin just alluded to, we will now be going to a live Q&A breakout session on Zoom. So there you can join the speakers and other attendees. You can ask questions or continue the conversation. That could be through chat or video or audio only. The link is now displayed, so the link will disappear shortly. So please click on this link now if you're going to join the breakouts. And we look forward to seeing you there. So again, if you're joining us for the breakout, please click the link now, and we will see you there. And thanks everyone again.